Good morning, Metroplex. The time has finally arrived. Yesterday, he was tied up in meetings. But how many years now is this?
Let's see. This is our ninth Cowboys season. So, yeah, right there.
So, for the 9th year in a row, we start with the Jerry Jones Show live with Sean and RJ on the home of America's team, 105.3 The Fan. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Sean, you and RJ, and boy, it feels good to be on here with you. I hate to start the game off with a fumble and miss our opening morning yesterday morning, but I was in Chicago bright and early there with our team that is negotiating with the Players Association, and we're trying to get a new collective bargaining agreement. We've been up there every Monday, it seems like, for the last 10 weeks or 8 weeks. And so it's good to be back with you. Good to get going. But it took that emergency to miss this show. This means a lot to me.
Well, you can make it up to us by breaking some new contract talk or extensions if you'd like to. And we have to ask it. We know you're tired of talking about it. Is there anything new to report, Jerry, or any progress on any of these deals, specifically Zeke?
Listen, you got me compromised because we missed yesterday, started off slow, but, baby, we can't go that hard. I don't have anything to report there. That'd be too high. That'd be too much to say just to make up. But, no, we don't have anything to report on our contract negotiation.
All right, Jerry. Well, without getting into numbers then, like you've often said deadlines make deals. With Zeke particularly, is there a deadline? Like, what is the deadline with this?
Not really. Not really at all. A lot of things happen when we start missing games, but guys, you know, you can miss games with injury. We have to be prepared to be trite. We have to be prepared to play without any given player, and that's just a given. That's not unusual business in the NFL. And we've played without players for suspension. We've played without them for injury. It'll happen again this year. And we may very well play without a player that is not coming in on his contract. So if that's the case, we'll just play. And we'll play well. We've got a really, I think, talented young team put together.
You know, Jerry, when something, drags on like this, and, you said the Zeke who comment, which it seemed like you got aggravated by the reaction to it. How hard is it not to take something like this personally, let your money get mad in a long, drawn-out contract dispute?
Oh, I think that we all have thoughts about it. It's just like I'm often asked, Jerry, how do you handle when you get a lot of criticism publicly, you get a lot of criticism in media? Is there personal feelings involved? Sure there are. But at the end of the day, we've been doing this now 30 years, and having criticism, having contract negotiations, some of the best friends I have in the world are people that I have directly negotiated contracts with and had business that we had to get reconciled. That's just part of living.
Jerry, Mike Fisher yesterday reported you guys have made a Girlie-esque offer. Any comment on that to confirm or not?
No, there's no comment to that. And, again, that has so many definitions. You know, one of the things when you're communicating with players or agents or what have you, the issues that are involved in a contract, when you mention a player's name, that could be all over the lot. And as you know, you can have a dollar amount, but don't have how it's paid, when it's paid, or whether it's guaranteed to be paid, and that's daylight and dark. So those name type comparisons aren't really anything you can hang your hat on. Now I use them. But I'm well aware that if I say I want a car like the fish drives, that could cover a lot of gambit. I might want one that color. I might want one with that can go as fast as this could go. We just got a lot of variations when we start talking in generalities.
Jerry, I've said that you guys have done a lot for Zeke, in my opinion. You know, with off the field matters, you went to battle with the commissioner and a lot of other things. Are you guys worried about him off the field in factoring in a future contract? Does any of that play into it? And does that loyalty get thrown out the window with these types of matters?
I'm very comfortable, and I know, but I am with everything that I know, which is everything I think. I'm very comfortable with off the field with Zeke. Let me get that real clear. And so I don't think that's an issue. It's unbelievable how he is and how it is for him off the field. That's not making any excuses, but he certainly has had 2 or 3 issues, but they're not a factor here.
Jerry, do you think we reach a point where it's too late to have his usual workload if he makes it back in time for the Giants game, where things would have to be limited based upon conditioning and getting hit in training camp practice?
Oh, not at all. And keep in mind that, listen, we've got a marathon here, and we want Zeke when we get to the playoffs. We want Zeke when we're in the dog days of this season. And as you well know, you have to plan your personnel, and you have to manage. You have to manage a player the caliber of Zeke. You have to, as to what parts of the game you use him, how much rest you use him. And so for Zeke, as we got on into the end of the season, would be great.
Jerry Jones joined us here at 105 through the Fan. Tank Lawrence has said that everything kind of came together with his deal when you guys met in person. Do you find it easier to negotiate and get things done, you know, when they're in person, and then maybe this, if he was here, everything would get done quicker?
Of course, you eliminate. That's always been the issue with me and my approach to managing the Cowboys. You eliminate when you cut out people in between the money and the player. We all know that agents, attorneys, all have their agenda. By the way, they're all taking money out of the pie, too, when they're there. And so the straighter it goes from the source to the one receiving it, 9 times out of 10, that's more efficient. And so I'm a big believer in directly, and I do that everywhere. I get I don't have a lot of in between. I don't consider Stephen and my family as in between. We're all on the same page. But anytime you can go directly to the recipient when you're the payee or you're receiving and you're talking to the payee, closer you can get to them each other, the less better chance you got to make a deal.
Have you had that in-person conversation with some of these parties here in the hope of getting things resolved, or you're not at that point yet?
I do in person, yes. And I'm not going to get into who, when, or how, but of course I do. And very seldom it is that I don't. Now, there are exceptions, and because it's going well enough, and they accept that the way we're doing it is, for all practical purposes, like talking to me.
Jerry, you've always looked out for the league, number one. Do you ever regret helping establish a salary cap and being a little too unselfish in that regard?
No, I actually have thought that our cap, and it's borne out, I think we are, by many measurements, the most successful league there is in the world. You can measure by a lot of measurements that we have the most success as far as eyeballs, as far as putting the show on, as far as taking the resources and giving it to the people that put the show on. I know that's a little bit arm waving here, but still, I think it's worked well. And a big part of why it's worked well is because we keep it competitive by this this real labor arrangement that we have.
Jared, do you think has the quarterback money gotten a little bit out of control with how much you guys have to allocate to the really, really good quarterbacks out there? Has that thrown things a little bit too much out of whack and something that you may have to adjust down the road, or you're fine with it?
Well, 10% of the players in the NFL get 2/3 of the money. And yet it's a game that you can't play it unless you have not only what's opening the holes and protecting and catching the balls, but over on defense, you've got to stop them and you've got to get the ball back so the offense can score. And so that's a dynamic that is challenging, but our system is working through it. But again, I emphasize 10% of the players in the NFL get 2/3 of the money.
Jerry, I know you keep tabs with the TV ratings. The TV ratings not the greatest for the preseason games. I know
really,
you guys
they
talk.
are.
I'm sorry?
No, they are. I take exception to that. Our ratings are up, and so we're great with these ratings. It's unbelievable that we get ratings in preseason and we get ratings for other areas that a lot of sports, that's what they get for their playoffs.
Will you guys?
Ratings are not an issue with us right now. Matter of fact, I'm real proud of them. If you really look at what's happening, traditional TV in general has dropped off. The one that, relatively speaking, that has stayed the strongest with the least drop off is the programming. We're not talking about digital and new eyeballs there, but boy, I'm really proud of what NFL football has done regarding ratings, TVs, and viewers. Very proud of it. It's one of our big strengths.
Well, we'll rephrase. The preseason, in our opinion, has never been more criticized in terms of, waste of time for the fans. I know you commented the other day, so has Steven. It's really valuable for you guys as evaluators and these guys out here who are proving themselves on the field. How likely are we to have a change with all this, with the meetings you've been in? How much criticism is legit for where things are with preseason football now?
There's nothing new about preseason angst relative to playing games. That's nothing new. That was an issue. One of the first things in my very first meeting 30 years ago that was addressed was, guys, we've got to make sure that we really put the show on during preseason. That has a natural angst against playing and exposing your starting players for games that ostensibly don't count. The facts are they do count in the sense that there's the big debate as to how much preseason is needed to get players ready this day and time, since they're really ready for all practical purposes all year round. That's with work included in that all year round. That doesn't just happen walking out the door. Having said that, certainly we're looking at that. What has happened is that it has been anticipated that something different might happen as to the structure of numbers and the preseason. And consequently, that's kind of floated over into the mentality of media. That's floated over into the mentality of teams, of coaches, of management. And we've let this preseason thing get a little farther away from what it needs to be if you were going to continue to have preseason games. We should play players that our fans want to see. On the other hand, this is a great opportunity for them to see players that they aren't going to see, at least immediately. Those guys are going to be players down the road. So anyway, the arguments are well known. I think, though, that we all are anticipating a change that will improve preseason. I certainly am one of those, and we're working hard. We're working hard at the player club collective bargain area between the players and the teams. We're working hard there. We're working hard at all of our get-togethers we have in the NFL, working with our working groups, our coaches, our general managers, our ownership. We're doing all of that, and we'll have a good. I think we'll have an adjustment in preseason, and it'll be good for our fans.
Would one of those adjustments be an expansion of the regular season or expanding the postseason by another team?
Very well, could be. Yes, certainly. Those are options that are under consideration, and it could really do. As I said, we've never had a higher demand for the games that we do have that are either the postseason or regular season, and so to the end that we can do what we want to do to have our game as important or substantive as we can make it, then more games would be good in lieu of preseason games.
Jerry, how hard is that sell to the players what just happened with Andrew Luck? Rob Gronkowski yesterday was very emotional about the wear and tear on his body. How hard would more regular season games be as a sell given what's happening throughout the league?
You have to cut back on the physical activity that you would have been expending in preseason or you would have been expending in training camp or during the off season. You cut back on exposure there that may to some degree offset the exposure that you have in the regular season. Now, there are people out there playing, and there are people out there physically having the quote exposure, if you will, that competition creates. Really, the real sensitive area are this 10% of our players that get 60-something% of the money. That's the sensitive part, not necessarily the guys that don't get the money.
All right, Jerry, last question. It's the one everyone's dying to know. It's not contracts. It is, has Jerry Jones had the new chicken sandwich from Popeyes yet?
No, I have not. Now, I've eaten a lot of Popeyes chicken. I like that chicken, and but I haven't had that new sandwich, and I'm just wondering if over the years if I've gotten close to it with some of their regular recipes. But it really is amazing to me the interest and what social media is doing and what it's doing relative to new service or new products and how you can communicate today. And it's really, this is if you will, this would be a Harvard business study on how to really do a good job of creating interest in a new product.
Jerry, it's good to have you back. Thank you for all the time and the honesty. We look forward to another year of it and next week as well right here on The Fan. Love having you on.
We're going to have some fun, guys.
Thank you, Jerry.
Have a good day.
You too.